Hello users. In this video, I will show you how to set up a projectile, different types of projectiles, and different customizable properties they have. Without further ado, let's get started. So as you see, there are many options to customize per projectile type. A projectile is represented by a chain, which also dictates its direction. More on this is explained later in the video. Now we will check out the options provided. First is primary key bind option, internally known as just key bind. As the name suggests, it is the primary key bind used by a player to trigger this projectile. Next is secondary key bind option. Here you can set a secondary key bind with the primary key bind to make a combination of key binds that a player needs to perform to trigger the projectile, such as jump plus left click. And then there is of course the option to select the projectile type. Each projectile type is explained individually later in the video. Let's understand the particle beam projectile type first. It will look something like this, basically just a beam of particles. It has some common options like other projectile types that include primary key bind, secondary key bind, the pitch and yaw. These two options determine the direction in which the projectile will be launched in. We can use the F3 menu to determine what pitch and yaw must be set for the projectile to make it launch in the direction we would like it to go in. For this example, we will set the yaw to -90. As you see, the chain has changed the axis accordingly. We can modify the pitch similarly as well, but do note that the chain can only have one axis at a time. So if pitch is set, it will take priority over the yaw for the axis of the chain in the model builder, but when the actual projectile is launched, both the pitch and the yaw will be applied. Next is the duration ticks. It is the maximum amount of time the projectile will be active for in ticks. Next is the pierce amount. It is the maximum amount of entities, such as players, zombies, skeletons, sheep, etc. it can damage. Further, there is the particle type option. This is pretty self-explanatory. For now, we will set it to glow. You can set it to anything you would like that is a valid particle. Moving on, there is the particle amount option. It determines the amount of particles spawned at a given place in the beam. For denser beam, you can set it to something high. And then there is particle speed. It determines the speed of the particles spawned. Next is the particle distance blocks. It is the maximum amount of distance in blocks the particle beam will travel. Then there is impact type option. There are currently 3 types of damage types. All of them have different options depending on what they do. The damage entity impact type will damage any entity that the projectile collides with. The destroy block impact type will destroy nearby blocks on impact. The explode impact type will create an explosion with the specified strength on impact. Now we will check out the particle gravity projectile type. So this is basically the same as the particle beam projectile type, but it will respect the specified gravity value. It has 2 new options, the Y force and the gravity value. The Y force is the amount of positive Y velocity added to the direction with the gravity. The gravity value is pretty self-explanatory. Next projectile type is the block projectile type. This has 2 new options, the velocity multiplier and the block data. The block data is basically the ID for the block that needs to be launched as the projectile. We can get the block ID by enabling Advanced Tooltip with F3+H and hovering over a block in the player inventory or creative inventory. The velocity multiplier option, as the name suggests, is the multiplier for the velocity of the spawn projectile. This is only applied when the projectile is initially launched. We can use x equals value or y equals value or z equals value to set the individual values, or use the format value, value, value. Next projectile type is the entity projectile. It only has one new option, the type of entity. That option is pretty self-explanatory as well. You can set it to whatever you like, but do note that it only supports valid entity types such as egg. You can change the position of the projectile by the gizmos present when the projectile is selected. You can duplicate a projectile by clicking the duplicate button. You can delete a projectile by clicking the red delete button.